One day, a woman was shocked when she saw that her boyfriend had made a sculpture of her most seductive pose, which was only between the two of them, and placed that sculpture at the most noticeable spot in the gallery. And under that sculpture, he had also written her name. People gathered around her, discussing only about her, and she was just standing there with a blank stare. Just then, the boyfriend came from behind, stood in front of her with a smile, and without caring about her feelings, started proudly showing off his award-winning art piece. The woman remained silent, didn't say anything, and walked away from there. Later, the boyfriend contacted Susie and said, "You got embarrassed by becoming my art piece? But I only make that person part of my art whom I truly love." Susie was in pain and could only say, "At least you could have talked to me first." It felt like the whole fault was only Susie's. Next morning, one of her friends comforted her, saying that no artist makes anyone a model without true feelings. "I think he's truly connected to you from the heart." Hearing this made Susie feel a little better. But at night, another friend warned her that her boyfriend is not trustworthy. Then, Susie suddenly decided to go to his studio for a surprise check. And as soon as she opened the door, she saw her boyfriend kissing his student. At that moment, those love-filled words from her boyfriend that night flashed in her mind. And then Susie understood that she was just a part of a game. She decided that now this relationship should not go forward. At night, Susie went to a bar just to run away from herself. Just then, a very handsome and charming playboy entered. All the girls started blushing looking at him, but he directly went to Susie. Susie first denied him, but when he came back and sat near her again, Susie looked at him once with a curious glance. That boy calmly complimented her. In his words was a soft charm that slowly started attracting Susie. Then he invited her to play a dart game. During the game, he gently held Susie's hand, softly placed his hand on her shoulder. There was comfort in his touch. When the dart hit the target, Susie happily gave a high five. The boy now tried to get emotionally a little more close. He gently touched her forehead with his hand and said, "You look even more beautiful when you smile." Susie felt this line was a bit cheesy, but still, her heart slowly started melting. Now the boy made his final move. He drew a small butterfly on Susie's wrist, saying that if this design is still there when we meet next time, then our connection is real. And when Susie asked, "Why butterfly?" he smilingly said, "A butterfly sticks to only one flower for her whole life. Just like that, I want your life to always be sweet." Then he gently blew on the design, as if he was doing everything casually. But every move of his was planned. And when he slightly bent down from his neck and revealed his butterfly tattoo, Susie got even more curious. His deep, caring gaze completely touched Susie's heart. When the boy tried to move forward, Susie instinctively resisted. But then that boy softly placed his hand on her head, a gentle gesture that dissolved all the doubt inside Susie. That night, Susie and Xian were standing outside the bar enjoying the moonlight. Xian took out the last 2 cigarettes from his pocket, one for himself and one he gave to Susie. But Susie didn't know how to smoke. Just then, a slightly drunk woman passed by, asked for a cigarette. Maybe she got attracted by Xian's good looks. To show her claim, Susie kept that last cigarette on her own lips, even though she didn't know how to use it. The drunk woman left, and Xian, seeing that moment, softly smiled at Susie and invited her to his house for tutoring. Susie became a bit hesitant and made an excuse to go to the washroom and left from there. When she came back, she heard Xian talking to someone on the phone in a very close tone. Hearing this, Susie's mood got completely down, and she left the bar without saying anything. Next morning, Susie cut her hair short and decided to enjoy single life. She planned to focus on her studies, but when she was buying painting supplies for a moment, she saw a glimpse of Xian. When she chased, Xian had already disappeared. Then Susie realized that she had become quite emotional for this boy. So to divert her attention, she attended a group mixer event with her friend. And there, destiny brought them together again. Both didn't tell anyone about the previous meeting. During introductions, Susie got to know that his name is Xian, and Xian also came to know Susie's name now. They sat in front of each other. Susie looked at him and tried to explain to herself that maybe the earlier scene was a misunderstanding. When she tried to pick up bread from her plate, her bestie took the last piece from her plate. Seeing this, Xian politely ordered another plate of bread for Susie. Everyone was busy in gossip, but Xian was only quietly looking at Susie. Susie felt maybe this time everything is real. But then the waitress left her phone on the table. Xian made flirt-type gestures with that phone, seeing which Susie became a little insecure. Doubts came into her mind that maybe Xian's sweet talks are just a habit. Xian noticed Susie's mood and took her for an ice cream treat. While coming back, he gently asked why Susie left that day without saying anything. And while talking, he naturally placed his hand on Susie's shoulder. At that moment, the same butterfly drawing that Xian made was visible on Susie's wrist. And seeing that, Xian softly smiled. Susie in that moment started thinking that maybe Xian is her destined partner. Till night, Susie waited for his text and was scared to reply. Next day during class, Susie suddenly told her friends that let's go for a walk in the hallway to meet Xian. But while roaming around like that, she didn't encounter Xian, and in that chase, she also missed her assignment. The teacher scolded her. After class, Susie returned home with her friends. One day, Susie heard that her classmate forgot her Bluetooth earphones, so she quickly volunteered to help. But as soon as she went back to school, she directly ran towards Xian's sculpture classroom, where she thought Xian might be. But there, she only saw a giant butterfly sculpture, which was Xian's award-winning piece. After waiting for many days, that evening became a dreamy moment. That day after class, only Susie was left in the classroom when suddenly Xian came behind her. He found out that Suzy went to the sculpture room to meet him. That's why he came here. A slightly stubborn Suzy refused to accept this, but when she saw his face, she couldn't control herself and smeared green paint on his face. A little playful moment happened between the two, and the students passing by also got impressed by this cute scene. At night, Suzy completed her sculpture assignment, and Xian made a sketch of her face. While returning, sakura petals scattered on the ground. A very romantic scene. Suzy stretched, and Xian held her arms from behind, saying that stretching after sculpting feels good, and then naturally hugged her. Suzy's bestie warned her that Xian usually doesn't involve his girlfriends in art, but Suzy felt that their connection is different. That night, both went to a bar, where Xian pulled her close and lightly bit her ear. The atmosphere slowly became intimate, and Suzy wrapped her arms around his neck. When both were almost about to kiss, someone else bumped into them and the moment broke. Feeling a bit embarrassed, Suzy went to the washroom. Upon returning, she saw that a girl named Cha-Cha was calling Xian to play a game. Xian looked at Suzy and then refused Cha-Cha's invitation and came to Suzy, placing his hand on her shoulder. But Cha-Cha held Suzy's hand and invited her too, and then Suzy saw that the same butterfly design was also on Cha-Cha's wrist. Suzy's heart broke. Now everything was clear. She quietly left from there. But Xian followed her and started saying that butterfly was made by Cha-Cha herself. He didn't make it. But Suzy wasn't ready to listen to anything. She sent him back with a cold face. Returning home, Suzy sat at the edge of her bed and started thinking, did Xian ever really take her seriously? And finally, she decided ending this relationship is the right thing now. Then Xian appeared in Suzy's class when Suzy was posing for a sculpture for a classmate, and she fell. Xian immediately ran and picked her up, but Suzy, who was already emotionally cut off, told him coldly, I'm fine. You do your work. Xian said, I just came to see you. But Suzy was now completely unaffected by his words. Even after that, Suzy sat at home at night thinking, does Xian do the same with every girl? In this doubt, she didn't reply to his messages. When Xian called, first Suzy was rude, but with his sugary words, a small smile came on her face again. In the morning, when Suzy was still sleeping, the doorbell rang. Xian was urgently standing at the gate. The scene after that felt like a dreamy sequence. But when Suzy's phone rang, then it became clear it was all a dream. When she opened her eyes, she was almost late. She quickly reached school and then remembered that her period had started. She asked a female classmate for a sanitary pad, but that girl was busy in the gaming cafe and didn't even see the message. Despite her period pain, Suzy bravely completed her class presentation. As soon as the work was done, she quickly left from there. But in a quiet corner of the stairway, Xian lovingly stopped her. He had noticed that Suzy was feeling a bit low, so he gently took off his coat and placed it over her shoulders. Suzy's mind was still confused for Xian. On one side were his sweet gestures, and on the other, his questionable past. When Suzy checked his social media, she saw that almost all his 2,000 followers were girls. This made her doubt even stronger. Maybe this boy is really dangerous. Her best friend warned her to stay away from Xian and suggested that both of them should attend a party together to understand Xian's real face. On the party day, Xian hadn't arrived yet. Then, an awkward and creepy fat senior started flirting with Suzy. His cheesy jokes made the whole vibe awkward. Just then, Xian finally entered the party, and the atmosphere suddenly became lively. Girls gathered around him. Everyone wanted to sit with him. Seeing this, that fat senior became even more irritated and started boring conversations with Suzy, making the party even more awkward. Xian quietly takes Suzy out of the party, and both of them have drinks, but that same senior follows them outside. When he questions the relationship between them, Suzy stays confused, and Xian directly says that he's not in a relationship with Suzy. This hurts Suzy. She feels like she's not important to Xian. She makes an excuse to go to the washroom, and her best friend consoles her, saying, don't feel bad, let's just go home and chill with the rest of our friends. The party continues at home. Suzy had invited Xian as well, and a total of 8 people begin playing Spin the Bottle. The rule of the game is, whoever the bottle points at has to play the mouth-to-mouth game with someone. The sound of their fun reaches the neighbors, but when Xian appears, the female neighbor gets impressed by his charm and says nothing. The game ends quickly. Later, when Suzy goes outside to take the garbage out, she sees Xian competing with a girl over dumplings. The expression on the girl's face shows that she was disappointed she didn't get a chance to play the game with Xian. When Xian feels Suzy's gaze, he immediately comes to her and tells her that the girl made a small wish, so he fulfilled it. Then he asks Suzy, how did you feel? You didn't get to play mouth-to-mouth with me in the game, did you miss it? Suzy gets a little uncomfortable, but when Xian comes close, she gently stops him. But then seeing lipstick on his lips, Suzy wipes it off herself, and in the next moment, rises on her toes and kisses him. After that night, Suzy keeps waiting for Xian's message. She's about to message him herself, but then hesitates, afraid of looking too desperate. But what she doesn't know is, at that very moment, Xian is at the airport receiving his ex-girlfriend, Xiaoya. Suzy is randomly walking around the college campus when she sees Xian and his ex holding hands. They look very close. When Suzy sees Xian with Xiaoya in such a special way, her heart breaks a little. She quietly walks into a convenience store, and there she runs into her junior, Xiao En, who has liked her for a while. They have a really good conversation. Xiao En gifts her a milk bottle and even asks for her contact, but all of this is being observed by Xian from afar. Xiaoya also notices that Xian's eyes are only on Suzy, and for the first time, she feels jealous. At night, Suzy Suzy receives sweet messages from Xiao-en, and for the first time, she enjoys being chased by someone. But when she looks at her silent chat screen with Xian, her smile slowly fades. The next day, Xiao-en brings her fruit and invites her to a movie. Just then, Xian suddenly returns and casually places his hand on Suzy's shoulder. When he finds out they're going to a romantic movie, he teasingly says, "Oh, the lead actor is a kiss expert, right?" Suzy, angry, takes him to the rooftop and they have an intense argument about that night. Things get worse, and the two go their separate ways. Xiao-en overhears everything but gently tells Suzy that it doesn't matter to him, and again invites her to the movie. Suzy, wanting to smooth over the awkward situation, happily accepts. After that, they enjoy a sweet couple date. Dinner, escape room, photos, and a movie. When Suzy looks at their photos, she feels, yes, this kind of love feels real. On the way home, Xiao-en shyly hugs her and says, "I'll always take care of you." Then he leans in to kiss her, but seeing his clumsy move, Suzy suddenly remembers Xian's expert style, and she starts smiling. Xiao-en feels a bit awkward and leaves. Back at home, Suzy starts comparing in her heart Xiao-en and Xian. To avoid confusion, she deletes all of Xian's contacts. The next day, she meets Xiao-en at the school festival, but is shocked when she sees that Xiao-en has a girlfriend, and he's holding her in a very close way. Suzy realizes even shy Xiao-en was secretly a player. This entire scene is also being watched by Xian. Despite being a top-level flirt himself, his possessiveness wakes up. That same night, Xian calls Suzy, but on the other side, he hears only coughing sounds. His concern suddenly becomes real. Suzy is about to refuse him, but her phone turns off. Xian becomes so tense that he reports it to the police. When Suzy returns home with medicine, she sees a crowd of police and people outside her house. Confused, she rushes inside and sees Xian staring at her with worry. When he sees that she's safe, Xian finally feels relieved. After the rescue team leaves, he gently checks Suzy's forehead. At night, Suzy lies on her bed and regrets her rude words. Then the doorbell rings. Xian has come with medicine and tells her, first food, then medicine. There's sincerity in his eyes. Suzy's heart begins to melt again. She softly invites him inside and says, "Come on, have a bowl of ramen." After dinner, Suzy feels sleepy. Xian carries her in a princess carry to the bed and neatly sets her blanket. Then he sits beside her and tells her a bedtime story. The next morning, when Suzy wakes up and sees Xian sitting next to her, her heart fills with warmth. She reaches out and softly touches his face. Xian goes to freshen up and Suzy finds him unusually handsome. Hearing her compliment, a small smile appears on Xian's lips. Then he comes back to her, takes her hair tie, and gently ties her hair. In that moment, Suzy feels his soft care and can't hold back her heart anymore. She kisses him herself. And after that passionate kiss, one thing becomes clear in Suzy's heart. Even if they only meet sometimes, it means Suzy and Xian's relationship slowly started to deepen. Their connection was no longer limited to just nights. Both decided to meet once a week, especially every Saturday. That Saturday, Suzy woke up very early, carefully got ready, and waited for Xian with a little nervousness. When Xian came, she saw the table set with full beer bottles. Suzy quickly explained that it was just to set the mood. Xian understood her tension but said nothing. Then she took out a handmade butterfly wind chime and hung it beside Suzy's bed. Then she sat down in front of Suzy. Seeing this soft and caring side of her, Suzy became even more deeply attracted to Xian. She once again felt herself drowning in his love. Slowly, Xian became a regular part of Suzy's life. Suzy also blended into the habit of spending nights with him. At college, they behaved like strangers, but when no one was around, they would secretly look at each other. At night, they behaved like a perfect home couple, feeding each other dinner and curling up together afterward. Everything was going perfectly, but then Xian's ex-girlfriend Xiaoya didn't like their frequent connection. And after that, a little friction started coming into their relationship. The worst was when Xian forgot Suzy's birthday. When Suzy called and said, "I'm going home, I won't meet today," Xian didn't even realize that Suzy was angry. Hurt, Suzy cut the call and sat alone in the bus under the rain. Just then, an old voice called out to her childhood friend, Do-hee. After meeting Do-hee, Suzy becomes emotional. She finds out that Do-hee is now a chef and runs a restaurant on a university campus in Seoul. When they arrive at the bus station, Do-hee invites Suzy to his cafe and they exchange contact information. Just then, due to a sudden break, Do-hee's potatoes fall down. Suzy helps him, and the rain gets heavier. Suddenly, an umbrella appears above her. Suzy turns around and sees it's Do-hee, who had already gotten off the bus just to protect her. He keeps holding the umbrella for Suzy the entire walk, but half of his own body gets drenched. Upon reaching home, Suzy realizes how caring Do-hee truly is. And from her heart, she says, "I wish I had met you earlier." On her birthday, Suzy is standing alone in the metro when suddenly Xian appears in front of her. Suzy becomes happy. They roam around the whole city, and Xian also gives her a sweet gift. When Suzy invites her for dinner, Xian hesitates a little, as if she had some other plans. Still, she comes to Suzy's house and says she'll make seaweed soup for her birthday. While cooking, Xian starts flirting with Suzy again, and Suzy once more can't resist her charm. An intense romantic moment happens between them. But just then, Xian's phone rings. When she answers the call, the name displayed is Xiaoya. Without any hesitation, Xian gets up from Suzy's arms and takes the call. Xian receives the call and then pretends everything is normal. Suzy understands maybe she's going to spend the second half of the night with another girl, but she had no control over it. Half-cooked seaweed soup sat on the table, and Suzy's stomach was genuinely hungry. She went to the supermarket but found nothing appealing. That's when she felt like going to Do-hee's cafe cafe. When Doohee saw Suzy, his face lit up like spring had arrived. They shared childhood memories. Doohee brought her a bowl of long-life noodles and chocolate cake. Suzy casually asked, "Weren't you going to make noodles?" But in her heart, only Xian was present. "I wish it was Xian instead of him." Doohee kept smiling and chatting. He remembered that Suzy's favorite flavor was chocolate cake, but he didn't know that he had become just a substitute. Doohee lights a candle for her birthday. In the candlelight, Suzy feels she wishes time could just stop here. The next day, Suzy dresses up in the outfit Xian gifted her and goes to meet him. They had promised to meet in the garden behind the school. Suzy reaches early, but Xian comes late. With a carefree look, candy in her mouth, wearing white shoes. When she gets close, Suzy feels a bit awkward and tries to change the topic. A classmate sees their moment, and soon after, rumors about them spread in school. Returning home, Suzy is shocked to see her ex-boyfriend waiting for her. He accuses her. "Are you with Xian?" She flirts with every girl. Suzy pushes him away angrily. She hated such comments and judgments. Back home, Suzy wonders, has her love life really become too complicated? She decides she should stay away from Xian. But when she sees her face again, her mind goes blank. She can't say anything. Just then, an older man appears and punches Xian. Suzy is shocked. What's happening? When they reach the police station together, it's revealed that the man was the brother of Xian's ex-girlfriend. He was angry because Xian got close to his sister even though she already had a boyfriend. He also warned Suzy. Suzy, feeling hurt, asks Xian, "Why did you go meet another girl?" Xian casually says, "What difference does it make? You like me anyway." Suzy angrily asks, "What exactly is our relationship?" Xian says, "Earlier you didn't have a problem." After hearing all this, Suzy can't take it anymore. She decides everything should end now. Seeing Xian's cold behavior, Suzy finally walks away from her. Back at home, she's about to throw the dress, but her hand stops. In the end, she clings to the dress and cries all night long. After Xian's departure, Suzy's life slowly begins to return to normal, but sometimes her thoughts still drift into Xian's memories. One day, Suzy sees a gift hanging at her gate, earrings and a necklace. She remembers when she fell hard. Her necklace had broken, and now Xian had noticed and gifted her a replacement. Suzy picks up the phone and calls Xian, but the number is disconnected. Then, the two meet again on a stairway. Suzy goes to return the gifts. Xian, hurt, says, "If you don't want them, just throw them away." When Suzy and Xian are together, Xian's phone rings. The caller ID shows Xiaoya's name, and without thinking, Xian immediately takes the call. Seeing this, Suzy quietly walks away. In reality, Xiaoya was sick, and Xian had gone to the hospital for a checkup with her, just as a concerned old friend. Xiaoya noticed Xian's low energy and casually asked, "Why do you look so down?" Xian softly replied, "I don't like this version of myself. I want to change." Then comes the day of Suzy's artwork presentation. When Suzy is choosing an assistant, Xian raises her hand without hesitation. Suzy is surprised by this gesture. Xian holds her hand while looking deeply at her, as if wanting to say something. Suzy gets a little shy and glances at her junior, then slowly pulls her hand back. They both work together in Xian's workshop, without talking about anything personal, focusing only on the work. Surprisingly, they fall into perfect sync, and Suzy starts to feel the sense of old familiarity again. From a distance, Xiaoya observes them and starts to feel jealous inside. One day, while Suzy is getting water, Xiaoya intentionally calls Xian, "Should I cut my hair?" and drops her lighter on the floor. Seeing the lighter, Suzy is shocked and asks, "What's your relationship with him?" Xiaoya confidently says, "I'm Xian's ex, and I'm still with her." Suzy responds in a tough tone and then suddenly disappears. Classmates ask Xian about Suzy, but Xian doesn't know either. Her mind stays distracted, but Xiaoya pretends she doesn't know anything. In reality, Suzy had returned to her hometown. There, she learns from her auntie that Doohee has also returned and is planning to open a noodle shop. A few days later, Suzy's friends finally find her contact and decide to visit her. They tell her they should go to Doohee's cafe too. Suzy doesn't refuse. She only says, "Don't tell Xian." Xian, who is unable to make sense of anything without Suzy, finally goes to Xiaoya and expresses her confusion. Xiaoya, who already knows everything, finally confesses that Suzy has gone back to her hometown. Hearing this, Xian immediately sets off to find her. Meanwhile, when Doohee hears that Suzy has returned, he also takes his car and goes to her. They meet at the beach. Doohee brings carefully prepared food for her. Seeing his caring nature, Suzy wonders, maybe he's loved many girls. But Doohee says, "Never. The girl I liked always had a boyfriend." Suzy finds this a bit surprising. When Doohee asks her, "Do you have a boyfriend now?" Suzy replies, "No." Hearing this, Doohee becomes so happy he gulps down his drink in one go. Then, Doohee softly confesses that he has liked Suzy since childhood. When he found out Suzy was going to Seoul, he wanted to confess, but someone told him Suzy was already committed. Because of that misunderstanding, he never opened his heart and couldn't even say goodbye. Once those misunderstandings are cleared, the two grow closer. At night, after a bit too much drinking, they sit in the car talking. Doohee softly says, "I'm really happy to see you again." Then he notices that Suzy has already fallen asleep on his shoulder. He gently adjusts her head and quietly covers her with a blanket. All night, Doohee waits outside the car for Suzy. In the morning, when Suzy sees that he's been curled up outside the whole time, her heart softens. Meanwhile, Xian sits in the same spot where Suzy once sat, replaying their old memories. Over time, Suzy unknowingly begins sculpting again, and the sculpture starts resembling Xian. When Doohee arrives outside her studio window, Suzy panics and quickly covers the sculpture with plastic. Afterward, the two go on a cycle ride, exploring little spots around town. Doohee quietly captures Suzy's happy moments on camera. When Suzy sees that all all the photos are just of her, a soft smile spreads across her face. At the same time, Xian receives a car from her mom as a birthday gift. When her mom mentions going to Paris, Xian can't stop thinking of Suzy. Seeing her daughter's face, the mother gently advises, sometimes things are clearer from a distance. Her words awaken something in Xian's heart, and she finally sets off to Suzy's hometown. Meanwhile, Suzy and Do-hee are shopping for vegetables in a small market. And in the warm vibe of the little town, they really look like a couple. On the way back, Suzy's bicycle tire bursts, and the two ride together on one bike. Do-hee covers the back seat with his shirt, and Suzy is once again touched by this small act of care. When Xian arrives and sees Suzy happily riding behind Do-hee, her smile freezes. Irritated, she begins following them. Do-hee instantly senses Xian isn't in a friendly mood and stands protectively in front of Suzy. The situation becomes a little tense, but friends arrive just in time and break the tension. Do-ho warmly welcomes everyone, but Xian's gaze is fixed only on Suzy. Feeling nervous under his intense stare, Suzy quietly goes inside. Later, Do-hee arranges everyone's stay and suggests going to an amusement park. Everyone heads out in separate groups, but Suzy ends up in Xian's car. She had left the front seat for Do-hee. The car is filled with silence. Xian keeps glancing at Suzy through the rearview mirror, and when Suzy looks back, their eyes meet. Do-hee, sitting in front, senses the tension. At the amusement park, seeing Suzy cheerful makes Do-hee happy. He even wins a cute teddy bear for her. From a distance, Xian watches their bonding and feels jealous. Even in the Ferris wheel line, he keeps staring at them, thinking Suzy is doing it all just to make him jealous. Suzy's best friend understands the situation and deliberately adds Do-hee to a group with Xian and Suzy, so that Suzy and Xian end up alone. Inside the Ferris wheel, Suzy softly says while looking out the window, "The view here is so beautiful." Xian quietly kneels and tries to say something emotional. Seeing that familiar face, Suzy becomes emotionally shaken. That night, after returning from the amusement park, Do-hee's younger sister, Do-shen, gets instantly impressed by Xian. She keeps circling around him. While everyone is barbecuing, Do-shen sticks close to Xian, and this makes Suzy uncomfortable. Her friend notices and gently asks, "Why are you avoiding him?" Suzy replies in a sad tone, "Xian already has a girlfriend. Please don't link us again." Everyone notices how close Suzy and Do-hee have become and asks, "How did you two meet?" Do-hee blushes and says, "We're childhood friends, and Suzy was my first love." Suzy glances at Xian for a moment, but Xian behaves indifferently. After dinner, they all play a whispering game. Do-hee drops out after 2 rounds. Do-yen takes the chance to quietly ask Xian a question, and afterwards starts drinking silently as if she's heartbroken. When Do-syen asks Xian a secret question, his reaction makes everyone curious. Everyone rushes to Do-hee and asks, "What was the question?" But Suzy remains unaware. Everyone else gets involved in the fun, but only Xian sits silently in a corner. People start to believe Xian has truly changed. Someone jokingly asks, "Is the girl you like among us?" Later, Do-hee injures his hand. Suzy immediately takes him for first aid. While alone, Do-hee quietly asks, "Twedu, Pya, what's your relationship with Xian?" Suzy has no clear answer. Do-shen later tells Suzy that the question she had asked Xian was, "Who do you want to kiss tonight?" Suzy is a bit shocked but responds with an awkward smile. He's probably just joking. But then Xian quietly comes in. He was the only one who noticed a small cut on Suzy's arm, too. He gently holds her hand, applies medicine, and softly blows on the wound. Suzy becomes emotionally overwhelmed by his soft touch, like she can't breathe. She wants to escape that moment, but Xian lifts her into his arms. In that moment, Suzy can't stop herself from kissing him. But later, she pulls away and distances herself from that feeling. Suzy later walks with Du-shen on a narrow village road. Du-shen has prepared a sweet confession setup, balloons, fairy lights, and a bouquet. He finally proposes to Suzy, but Suzy politely rejects him. She softly says, "I only came back here because I wanted to run away from Xian." When Du-shen asks, "So will you and Xian get back together?" Suzy says, "No, never again." The moment becomes quiet. Suzy's tears fall silently and Du-shen opens his arms, but Suzy just walks away, leaving him behind. Xian sees this scene from a distance. Du-shen returns sadly holding the bouquet. Xian understands Du-shen's confession failed. Du-shen seriously says, "Please don't go back to Suzy. She said the time she spent with you was the most embarrassing phase of her life." Xian just gives a bitter smile. At the end of the holiday, Suzy is about to return to school, but shockingly, no one comes to see her off. After rejecting both Xian and Du-shen, her life suddenly turned quiet. But just as the car is about to leave, Du-shen appears at the last moment. Suzy is a little surprised. She had just rejected his proposal yesterday, yet he brings her a sweet dessert and lovingly says, "Take care on your journey." After getting off the car, Du-shen calls and softly tells Suzy, "I'll never stop chasing you." Suzy returns home and immediately receives a sweet check-in message from Du-shen, but the call she truly expects is from Xian. Du-shen remembered that Suzy loved chocolate, so he decided to become a pastry chef and promised to visit Seoul soon. Suzy doesn't reject him directly. Instead, she says, "Do come, I'll cook dinner for you." On the other side, when Xian returns to school, her artwork starts grabbing the most attention. Xian's artwork gets noticed by VCU, and when Suzy finds out that Xian might be going to America for further studies, she goes to meet her. Xian feels a bit low and takes her to an art exhibition hall, where Suzy realizes it's the same place where her ex-boyfriend had displayed her seductive sculpture. It was an uncomfortable place for her, but for Xian, it was the moment where she first saw Suzy. For her, that was was the beginning. They had met again at a bar, which Xian believed was fate, but to Suzy, it was nothing more than coincidence. Xian decided to do everything to win Suzy back, and so she became a model for Suzy's art studio. The students were surprised. How could such a classy girl become a model? But only Suzy knew it was all for her. Whenever Xian sat among the students, her gaze always fell on Suzy. A few days later, Do-hoo actually comes to Seoul. He personally brings lunch for Suzy. Suzy is very happy, but their close moment is seen by Xian, and she quietly walks away. Then Suzy shows her artwork to Do-hee. He praises it a lot, and in his gentle presence, Suzy becomes a little emotional, like she's caught between two relationships. After Do-hee leaves, Suzy feels guilty and walks alone on the street. Without realizing, she ends up in the same alley where she had once met Xian. Just then, Xian calls, but Suzy doesn't pick up. What she doesn't know is that Xian was right behind her. When their eyes meet, everything pauses for a moment. In that silence, they begin to understand each other. This time, Xian doesn't cross any boundaries. Why? She just silently walks with Suzy and drops her home. Meanwhile, Do-hee tells his friends about Suzy. They all say, "This is the perfect time. Go confess." Do-hee excitedly arrives at Suzy's house, but is stunned to see her walking in with Xian. Suzy tells Xian, "Wait here, I'll grab your stuff." But Xian notices Do-hee and follows her upstairs anyway. Inside the house, Xian sees the old balcony wind chime, their shared memory. Suzy hands him his belongings and says, "Now go." But Xian quietly sits down, holds her hand, and makes a light, funny comment in his own way. Suzy feels a little more relaxed. Their eyes meet, and a strange silence fills the room. Xian slowly leans in toward her lips, but this time, Suzy pushes her away. She opens the fridge to cool herself down. But Xian doesn't give up. She gently holds Suzy's shoulder and says something softly. That night, Suzy can't sleep. She just keeps staring at the wind chime, confused whether Xian's words were real or just another act. The next day, Suzy's emotional turmoil causes a delay in her art progress. Her France exchange program gets canceled. Meanwhile, in her hometown, Do-hee watches a video of Suzy, and his memories come flooding back. He calls her. Exactly at the moment Xian comes to console her, Xian sees it and feels hurt. Her heart breaks. Suzy chose someone else in her moment of pain. Now, Xian feels broken inside. After recent rejections, she starts to believe Suzy has really moved on. On the other side, sensing Suzy's low mood, Do-hee decides to go to Seoul once again. That night, Xian searches for another chance to talk to Suzy. Before getting off the bus, Xian pulls out a bracelet she made by hand, and without saying anything, gently ties it on Suzy's wrist. Suzy doesn't refuse, and hope sparks in Xian's heart again. But the next day, while they're having lunch together, Suzy gets a call from Do-hee. The moment she hears he's come to meet her, she happily jumps up and walks away, leaving Xian behind. Do-hee brings a special gift for Suzy, a photo album of their beach memories. Then he quietly confesses, "That day, I saw Xian at your house, and it shook me." Hearing this, Suzy understands everything. When she returns home, she finds Xian standing outside her gate, drenched in rain. Xian already knew Do-hee had visited, but never mentioned it to Suzy. She feels like Xian is still trying to manipulate her. When Xian accuses, "You hurt me," Suzy's patience snaps. She had never felt this much disappointment. She leaves Xian standing in the rain and collapses on the floor, crying loudly. Like this time, she was truly exhausted by this relationship. And Xian, standing in the rain, tells herself, "Yes, I played with her." But when those words come out of her mouth, even she can't understand why she caused so much pain. Maybe she had ruined everything herself. The next day, Suzy goes to school, but another heartbreak awaits. Her entire semester sculpture project gets shattered into pieces by a falling ceiling fan. Graduation is near, and this is a disaster. Suzy is shattered. She just sits on the floor, staring at the broken pieces. Then Xian gets a call, and when she arrives at school and sees Suzy like this, her heart sinks. She quietly sits beside her, offering strength. "Let's make it again, Suzy." This time, both put complete focus on their work. There's no romantic tension like before, only a silent understanding and mutual support. Suzy finds this phase peaceful. Xian maintains distance, never offering to drop Suzy home, but whenever she saw Suzy sleeping somewhere, she quietly placed a blanket over her. Their project gets completed ahead of time. Tears fill Xian's eyes, but she only smiles and says, "I hope your graduation is perfect." She wanted to say more, but feared hurting Suzy again, so she left quietly. Watching her sad face, Suzy's eyes fill with tears too. After that day, Xian simply disappears. Suzy returns to her routine, but inside she feels empty. Everywhere she goes in the city, memories of Xian follow. One day, she accidentally opens the drawing album Xian had given her and finds that every sketch was of her. Her heart swells with emotion. On graduation day, Suzy wears the bracelet Xian gave her. Do-hee also comes to celebrate, bringing his friend Yang Jie-geng along. But when Do-hee spots Xian in the crowd, he quietly pulls back his bouquet. By the time he runs outside to find her, Xian is already gone. Then Do-hee follows silently behind Suzy. Now Do-hee fully understands. Suzy never liked him the way he liked her. Suzy gives him a slightly guilty look, but Do-hee just smiles and thanks her. He says, "Because of you, I felt a special emotion, and for that, you don't need to feel guilty." Then he gives her Yang Jie-geng's gift as a farewell present. And with that, Do-hee quietly exits this love story, becoming the soft-hearted, one-sided boy in everyone's memory. At the graduation party, everyone is enjoying with their partners, and Suzy, watching them, feels a little lonely inside. She quietly leaves the venue, and without planning, ends up once again at the same gallery. There, standing in front of her artwork is a familiar silhouette, Xian. Seeing Zion, Susie's heart skips a beat, but her reaction is sharp. She says, "You disappeared, so why not just vanish completely? Why come here and shake up my feelings again?" Xian has no answer. She just stands silently with her head down. Then Susie looks at her and notices the same bracelet on Xian's hand that she had once made for her. In that moment, Susie realizes her heart still beats for Xian. A quiet moment passes between them. Then Susie gently holds her hand. Xian smiles softly, a genuine, heartfelt smile that had long disappeared. And this time, it is Susie who kisses her first. With that kiss, their love begins anew, a sweet, gentle relationship. Even now, sometimes girls try to flirt with Xian, but she has learned to politely refuse. The former heartbreaker is now truly loyal to her love. And with Susie, her life returns to that same familiar, teasing, and loving rhythm where their playful romance comes alive once more. And with that, this story comes to an end.